Okay, I am going to be going over how to clean up your photos in Photoshop. This is just going to be a quick rundown of kind of a basic introduction to Photoshop. I'm not sure how experienced everyone is, but we're just going to start on the main interface, open up our document here. I will be using Jonathan's example that was shown in class. Um, so right now, your layer is always going to start locked. That's just to make sure you don't move it around. Similar to what Mr. Ben did, we are going to duplicate the layer. So you can do that multiple ways. You can right click on your image and then you can jump to duplicate layer. Got to pull this up real quick. And if you do it on the same document, you can just hit OK, and there's your duplicate right there. Another way, if we delete that, you can hit Control J or Command J if you're using a Mac, and then boom, you have two copies. So the idea and reasoning behind using two copies is that in case you mess up when you're working on this file, you'll always have a second. And you can't really tell right now, but there are two different images on this file. So I guess some other tips. This is your move tool up here. You can drag things around. So look at, there's that second layer right there. Just going to Control Z back. If you want to zoom in, you have the zoom tool over here, but a very quick and easy way, like most programs, is you hold down Alt or Option on the Mac, and then you use your scroll wheel, and that is how you zoom in and you zoom out of your image. So we're going to zoom in here. I'm going to try to figure out where I want to work on. I suppose right here will probably be like the biggest thing. So using what Mr. Ben kind of talked about in class, we're going to come over here to our lassos. So you got three different options here. You've got your regular lasso tool, which I'll just do a quick example. You can kind of hold it down and drag it, and you can make whatever shape you want. And it's really weird. It's good if you have one of those like touchpad sensors, or you're working on your iPad where you can kind of draw more accurately than with your mouse. We're just going to deselect, and to deselect, you can hit Control or Command D. So then there you go, your selection has disappeared. Then you're going to go up here and right click to get all of the rest of them, and we're going to work with the polygonal lasso. So the polygonal lasso, you might call it the polygonal. I think it's pronounced polygonal. We're going to select that. Similar to what Mr. Ben said, it is used to draw straight lines. So you can just draw all over, and then once you get to the end, you'll kind of see this little circle pop up. That means you're completing your thing. There you go. That's your selection. We're going to Control D that, and I'm going to show you the last one, which is the magnetic lasso. So the magnetic lasso uses AI to kind of sense the difference in contrast of pixels. So say I'm drawing along this line, it uses a similar technique as the regular lasso, but it kind of straightens itself out. As you can see, it's kind of generating points along where the darkness is. And then here, it can't really find anything, so you can kind of go all over as it tries to generate, and then you see it grabbed that edge. So that can be really helpful if you're trying to draw something quickly, similar to the lasso tool, but it will kind of help you find your edges so you don't have to adjust that as much. So then you might be asking, well, why are we drawing this? Like, what does this help do in reality? So this pretty much works as a boundary line. So this is saying, okay, we can only work within this selected dash area. So say I went over here to my paint bucket, I can just easily, boom, I'm going to paint bucket, and that'll drop within here. So the paint bucket's a little bit finicky when it comes to just dropping onto an image, because you have pixels interacting with it in the background. So say I were to create a new image right here, boom, that'll fill all the way in cleanly because there aren't any background pixels on there, but we're just going to delete both of that by going back to Control D. We're deselecting that. Actually, I probably need to Control Z my way back. Okay, So now I'm going to clear that selection, and we're going to go jump back here, and I am going to define my area using the polygonal lasso, just because I want to draw this line instead of having the magnetic lasso try to guess where we're going. So it's okay to have a little bit of shadow, because no matter what, when your material meets up, it will create a little bit of that line. So I'm just going to go up here, and I'm going to leave a lot of room here because this is going to be our sample space above where we're working, and that's important to leave when you're using the clone stamp tool, which I will be getting to. Okay, so wow, this is really huge right now. So clone stamp tools, similar to other brushes in Photoshop, have circular sizes as normal. And to scale this down, because this is giant right now, you can hit Control or Alt or Option on the Mac, and then also hold down the right key, right click on your mouse, and slowly drag it to the left, and that will shrink your brush. Well, I went really fast there. Or you can go back to the right and make it much larger. And then as you can see, the diameter is changing. You can also change hardness. So hardness is how sharp the edge of your brush is going to paint on something. So as you can see right now, our hardness is at 28. This can go anywhere from 0 to 100%. And if I were to go back to the center, or you don't even have to go back to the center, honestly, if you start going up, you can see the the hardness getting softer. So you can see kind of the edge of the circle is pretty much clear. But as we move further inward and go down, the hardness outlines the circle completely, and you really get a nice sharp edge. So when we're working with the clone stamp tool, we'll probably work along a softer brush, because you're sampling images, and you want things to kind of blend in with the already existing imagery. So you don't want to have that really hard edge, because that's a lot harder to clean up. So right now, I'm just going to kind of go over what the clone stamp does. That is what we're working with. So essentially, you are going to hold Alt or Option on the Mac, and this is your little target, which is where you're going to be sampling from. So if I click right here, say I were to paint right here, you can kind of see it. It's starting to slowly blend that edge. So if I continuously paint right here, it will slowly disappear. And you can see, like right there, it kind of seems like it's not really blending that well, and that might be because I did not sample from the greatest spot. So I can Control Z out of here, and I can resample, and I can kind of paint that down. And you can see it's even sampling from right there. But using our guard, it stops where we want it to stop. So theoretically, you could make this really, really large and sample this, and it'll pretty much take up. And you can see within the circle, that is what you're working with. So if we line that up where the shadow is, that's right about right. If we start kind of painting downward, it's not going to do anything. And the reason is because the clone stamp tool is tracking where the brush is and continuously sampling from that place. So since we started here and started dragging here, we are essentially just copying and pasting, cloning and stamping the same information. But if you sample from here, move your brush down a little bit further, and then start painting, you'll be able to cover that up. So you're going to start to actually kind of jump over the original place where we started. So you can do that over here. You always want to make sure that you're kind of resampling to make sure you're using the right content. And you can even see, if we zoom in, I didn't start low enough after I sampled, so you're still kind of getting that edge in there. So if I just kind of repaint that, I sample over here a little bit, you can kind of line that up, paint down, kind of got to go a little bit lower to cover that up. Okay, and now we can kind of Control D, out of our selection and look back and say, wow, that line got significantly smaller. So we can actually, let's go back to just our handle tool and take a look. That gap is practically gone. And as you can see right here, technically this should be in shadow. So we can actually fix that quite easily using our polygonal lasso. Like, okay, this right here should be in shadow. So let's make enough room to be able to sample. Close up our loop and jump over to our clone stamp tool. And we're going to shrink this brush down by pulling to the left again. We're holding Alt and the right clicking on our mouse. We're going to sample this kind of dark area. And you see that since we moved over, we're not going to catch any of that light, and we can kind of just push. But you can also kind of see that this area right here is lighter than this area here. So there are a couple ways you can go about this. You don't have to actually be that picky when it comes to this because no one will probably notice too much. But what we could do is we could use the dodge and burn tool, but that is something for another day. But essentially, if we deselect that, you can kind of see how hard that edge is there, and that's because the polygonal barrier was right there. So you're going to get a really crisp edge, which is not really photorealistic. And that's something that we can kind of dive deeper into once you get more experienced in Photoshop. But at this point, you can't tell what's going on there. And that's the whole idea, is to work as efficiently as you need to. So that's just one example right there. And this can work multiple ways. So we could jump over here, get our outline, see where that edge is. So we want a little bit of the black, but we don't want a ton of it. And we're just gonna, well, we want to align that. So we're gonna escape. I'm gonna redraw that. If you ever are using the polygonal lasso and want to start over, you have to hit the escape key. So I'm gonna get this so it just lines up with this side seam right here. Where did my line go? So there's also, in case you ever lose your line and you're searching for it, you can zoom in, or if you hit Control or Command on a Mac, your circle will pop up, and that means as long as you're holding down the Control or Command key and you press left click, it will complete it for you, so you don't have to go out and search for your lasso finish. So we're going to jump back to the clone stamp. We're going to sample. So I was wrong earlier in this video when I said you can only sample from within here. You can sample from anywhere in your document, but it will only paste here. But it is good to sample as close to your image as possible from where you're working, because that's where the light is the most accurate, and that's what we're trying to mimic here. So we're just going to kind of paint our way over this. And the great thing about foam core is it's all one solid color for the most part, so we're not going to see a ton of variation. So now we're going to deselect there and zoom out, and you can see like that is practically gone. And we can also jump back in and finish up this edge. So that is, I guess, a quick way to go about it. Similar to most softwares that you will encounter throughout your life, there are multiple ways to solve these types of problems. So you can also just YouTube a lot of helpful videos for cleaning up photos, but that is initially what I can share with you today. Thank you.